So in the latest incarnation of We Need to Talk About Bray Wyatt, which seems to happen basically every week, Andrew Zarian of the Wrestling Observer recently reported that part of the reason that Bray Wyatt was released by the WWE was because he was being, and I quote, difficult. There was a lot more detail in what Andrew Zarian said, but he didn't really hit the headlines as much as the word difficult did. Now I can confirm this, mostly because I reported this exact thing on the day that Bray Wyatt was released. If you're a regular here on these channels, you'll remember joining me where we spoke about a lot that had happened with Bray Wyatt and how he was being protective of his character. Now my report did state that Bray Wyatt was becoming protective of his character. He was unhappy with the booking choices that the WWE had been making as regards his characterization and was becoming more and more unwilling to return to work and get on with it. This, when you add on the cost-benefit analysis as conducted by Nick Khan, everybody's favourite, was one of the primary reasons that Wyatt was released. So the first thing I need to say is that this isn't by definition news. News by nature is new. News is new information, and this isn't new information. I can point you directly to the video in which I explain this exact thing, as well as being the guy to break the news that Wyatt had been on one of Nick Khan's release lists beforehand. In fact, I'm pretty sure the actual fact of release lists was also something that I broke. But I digress. You can tell Bray Wyatt is a big name in wrestling, quite possibly the biggest free agent available now that Lesnar, Punk and Bryan have been tied down, because of how many people are hovering, waiting for news. If you leave it long enough, all information seems new. In this case though, it hasn't really been very long, has it? Bray Wyatt is still under his non-compete clause. As such, he hasn't signed any contracts and hasn't spoken much about any official deals, but there is definite interest from a lot of companies. The lack of movement here and the lack of comment from Bray Wyatt has encouraged people to start talking about it more often, but there isn't any new news to share. When he does reappear, and he will, expect the ensuing storyline to be entirely of Wyndham Rotunda's design. Whoever hires him, they will have agreed to let him do his thing unimpeded. As such, it's sink or swim time. Wyatt has one clear challenge ahead of him. He needs a story that he wants to tell to be by far the most interesting thing anyone has ever seen. Otherwise, he runs the risk of just sort of letting people down. Right now, the danger is that he actually might not be as creative as we all think him to be. If we get swamp fights non-stop for the next 5 years, I'm going to be honest with you, I'll just be switching off. Wolfgamer says, to be fair, I think anyone who has put in so much time, effort and creativity into a character that wants to be protected of it would be considered difficult if they don't want to willingly go along with crap creative decisions. Yeah, that's the thing. You can tell that this report did not come from a connection for Bray Wyatt. It definitely came from someone in the WWE who didn't like working with Bray Wyatt. And Noob says, that's the one thing I hate is a swamp fight. Yeah, it wasn't good. It wasn't good. I sat and I watched that swamp fight and it just wasn't very impressive. I can't say it was enjoyable for me. It genuinely made me feel a little bit sick. Just a little bit sick. Not a deal breaker, but, you know, not good. But he says, I have a hard time believing that being difficult was the reason, given that other wrestlers had actual attitude problems and still stayed in WWE. That's very true and something worth considering. There's a lot at play here that needs to be considered, and ultimately it's one of those things that this may very well be the WWE's opinion, or it may be one person's opinion. It may just be one person's opinion. Sean says Alexa was the only good part of the swamp fight. I can't disagree. Genuinely can't. Hector says, I love Bray to death, been a fan since NXT, but I don't know if giving him complete creative control is the right move. I know WWE didn't really help him, but let's give him the same amount of creative control wherever he goes and see if there's any issues. I worry that part of the deal for whoever signs him next will be complete control over his character. I think that's what he'll go for. It will not surprise me if he gets it either, because it's one of those things where, you know, you expect something, and he definitely had expectations, and he didn't quite get them. And with the amount of characters that he created, the amount of different roles that he was going for, the fact that he was able to create several characters that just did not connect, that's an achievement in and of itself, let's be honest. So, I don't know. I just don't know if it's going to be something that you consider a success. Or is it one of those situations whereby if you don't let him do it, he'll completely escape you, completely. Sean says, was not having creative control over his character the reason Matt Hardy left WWE? There were a number of reasons that Matt Hardy left WWE. He wasn't pushed particularly well. He wasn't used all that well. Look at what's happening to Jeff Hardy now. But yeah, he wanted to be a bit more broken universe. They just wanted the Hardy name. The WWE very much just wanted the Hardy name. And that's not good. That's not good at all.